now. Matt Schlapp from the CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Group. They've got an event coming up here in Minnesota. Good morning, Matt. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, great to be with you guys.
Appreciate it. Tell us a little bit about this event that you've got coming up here.
Well, obviously, September 11th is a big day, tragic day in our history, and we have been quite troubled with some of the language coming out of these new members of Congress, and we decided that we'd go out to Minnesota, a state that we think is very much at play in the 2020 presidential campaign, talk about September 11th, talk about patriotism, talk about the heroism of the first responders, what it means for America to have a voice in the globe today, and we're really excited about the event.
Yeah, you got some great speakers. Our good friend of the show, Representative Nick Zerwas, will be there. John Hinderaker from Center of the American Experiment, among others. And I apologize. I introduced you as from CPAC. CPAC's putting on the event. You're with the American Conservative Union. That's my mistake. I will tweet out a link.
No, that's not a mistake. It's totally understandable.
Oh, it's all part of the...
It's just...
All right.
Yep, it's all part of the same thing. ACU puts on all kinds of different programs and events. CPAC is just a premier event, and we're really excited to bring it to Minnesota. And if folks want to come, they just got to go to our website at conservative.org or show up tomorrow at 4 o'clock at the Brown Heritage Center.
And I'll also I'll tweet out the Eventbrite link using the hashtag TCNT if anybody wants to check it out.
We definitely...
That would be awesome.
We want to talk, and we will in just a moment, of the ACUF's ratings of Congress and ratings of the states, and we'll get a little bit into that. I wanted to make a quick comment, Matt, and I echo Drew. Thanks for joining the show this morning. I'm glad that this is taking place on 9/11, and there's a focus on that, because, quite honestly, I was surprised the other day when I had to schedule something for Wednesday, and the date popped up, 9/11. I was like, oh my gosh, another 9/11 has arrived. And then it dawned on me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just now realizing that another 9/11 has arrived. And it's very unfortunate. I can't think of a better way to put it right now. It's very unfortunate that we don't seem to put an emphasis on 9/11 in the way that we did. It seems like every single year we get more distance from it when we should, as a country, be remembering those that we lost that day and why we lost those people on that day. And it seems like, and I hate to be, tinfoil hat-ish, but it really does seem like there is a certain political party that wants us to forget that 9/11 happened and not focus on it. So I'm glad the event is taking place and there's a focus on that particular day.
Well, I agree with you. I worked in the White House for President George W. Bush during this time, and I remember running out of the White House on September 11th. We all have, the moments of that day fresh in our head, and I think about those people who died in the Pentagon, the people who died in the towers, the people who died in Pennsylvania, and one of the reasons I think why some people think about this in political terms is that, it sure did make the concepts of strong national defense and fighting Islamic terrorism foremost on our agenda. And look, some people thought that accrued to the benefit of one party and not the other party. And quite honestly, I don't care what party benefits from it, but I do want the party that's willing to stand up against these terrorists to have more political power, and those politicians that would try to tell us that this was just one event in a whole series of events in our history, nothing particularly outstanding or dreadful about it. I think that's an abomination, and I hope those people lose when they're up in front of the voters.
You mentioned at the beginning of the call that you decided one of the reasons you decided to do this event here is because you view Minnesota as being a state that is very much in play in 2020. I'm curious, what leads you to that? What leads you to that conclusion? Because here on the ground in Minnesota, it's still a little hard to see. This has been such a DFL-dominated state for a long time, and it's still kind of tough to imagine that on a statewide level, Minnesota could be in play, even though the data is somewhat pointing in that direction. So, is there anything specific that jumped out at you that made you want to bring this event here to Minnesota, and why you think it might be more in play?
Well, I think, first of all, I had the good fortune of working in Minnesota in the 2000 presidential election when I was based in Austin, and got to know a lot of the operatives on the ground. And I felt like we had a good chance in 2000, and we got close, but didn't get there. And I think the last election was relatively close. Obviously, you guys are a classic example of a purple-blue state. But I think the way that politics is changing will present some opportunities for President Trump and the Republicans. It also presents some challenges. I understand that. I'm not naive when it comes to politics. I do think this question about America's role in the world, in national security, having support for first responders, cops, police, I think these are pretty important themes out there in politics. And I think it gives a chance for voters who might normally either not vote or vote for the blue candidate to reconsider what's at stake in our country when we're looking squarely in the eyes of socialism and a socialist candidate for president. I think that makes voters think, okay, what do I care about? Do I really want to support a party that always attacks the cops, always attacks the military, always blames America first, always is on the attack of Israel, and our key allies? Is that really the America they want? Maybe they don't love everything about the Republican Party, but there's a certain practicality to understanding that socialism and Americanism are simply not coexistent.
Talking with Matt Schlapp, again, the ACUF and CPAC Minnesota are hosting an educational forum tomorrow on 9/11. I know that you've got the ACUF's Ratings of Congress and Ratings of the States initiatives for the ACUF Center of Legislative Accountability. You got a lot of talking points and information about our Republican Minnesota House of Representatives, Minnesota legislators. What can people expect at the forum tomorrow were they to attend?
Well, first of all, we're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Second of all, we're going to honor our heroes. Third of all, we're going to remember why the lessons of 9/11 are so important. And the fourth thing we're going to do is interact with the audience and get their perspectives. I have my own personal story on 9/11. As I said, I ran out of the White House on 9/11 working for President Bush and Vice President Cheney. I was dating my now wife on that day, and she ran out one door. I ran out the other door. It was quite a harrowing thing for us personally, and we're just one small story in the mosaic of all the 9/11 stories. And I think it's very important for people to recall that day, because if we don't remember what got us in a vulnerable position on 9/11, we will simply repeat it again. And I think that that's the most important issue that voters and just Americans generally have before them when they decide the type of government they want.
Matt Schlapp, thank you so much for your time. Again, it's the ACU Foundation hosting an educational forum tomorrow in conjunction with CPAC Minnesota. If you go to Twitter, just search the hashtag TCNT or follow me on Twitter. I tweeted out the Eventbrite link that's got all the information. Jason Lewis is going to be there, Zerwas, Mike Lindell, a lot of great speakers, a lot of great guests, and yourself, of course. So thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
Happy to come and tell your listeners go to conservative.org and get their tickets.
All right, take care.